Alright guys, I do remember saying that it was possible a video was coming out today if things went according to plan. Well, this was not what I had in mind, but it's got to be done because it's something important to me, and it's not about Margaret. Nope, it's not. I just want to warn you, like Ward Burton, the pimping didn't work, although it came this close to doing it. She's going to be there again tomorrow, so maybe I'll give it another shot. If not, I'd say give it another shot next week. So we'll see what happens. And all I gotta do is hope and pray on it, because like I said over on my Instagram and on my Twitter, Twitter, and my toast to the big leap, there's probably gonna be a lot of ditching going on, so we'll see. But anyway, if you want to learn more about this developing story, go to my Instagram and Twitter, or even my Facebook, or very not as much as the other those, but like the TikTok, or sometimes even. I don't know if I'll post as much on TikTok, but if other than that, go to my Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for more of this developing story. But anyway, that's beside the point. Today, I'm here to talk about the Zane Smith news, well, on the news on Front Row Motorsports in general. Now, I'm not going to talk about Todd Gilliland moving up to Winston Cup. I'm not going to talk about the defending Daytona 500 champion return to the 34, because those guys are the least of my concern. I'm a Zane Smith fan, so therefore I'm going to talk about him. Since GMS gave him the boot, to be fair, they gave Sheldon Creed the boot too. Considering that, even though I don't even like him anyway, considering how funny I was a Zane, GMS, I loved Zane Smith, but hated Sheldon Creed for causing Zane, to get taken out in the big one on lap 14 in the truck race at Talladega last year. But anyway, so therefore he got the boot, and so it looked like he was going to be out of a ride. I was fearing and hoping that this wouldn't be I was hoping this would be the case, and I was afraid that they were going to rush him up to Winston Cup, and considering how they did the same shit to to John Hunter, and last year, and then they did the same shit to Alfredo this year. So therefore, I'm glad they didn't do that shit with Zane Smith, and for 2022. So let's talk about it. So he wins Rookie of the Year in the Craftsman Truck Series in 2020. Nearly wins the championship, and then he is actually 20 laps away from his first Craftsman Truck Series championship until Bitch Boy Ben gave him the bump and run. I mean, don't get me wrong. That was a typical Rubbins racing deal. It's a racing incident, When you're racing for a championship, there's no way you're going to race somebody clean. But even then, as perfectly content I was with that, considering that he took it easy on him and didn't hit him hard or take him out or send him into the wall, I still hate Bitch Boy Ben. So therefore, yeah, always hated him, always will, even if he does, does things to the class, whether it's against drivers I like or drivers in general. So anyway, so yeah, therefore he finishes second in the Craftsman Truck Series Championship this year by 1 point. 1 point, I think it was 1 point. I mean, I could be wrong. I don't check stats anymore like I used to, but considering that they were like one truck apart from each other at the end of that Chevy Silverado 150 that I live streamed with the Spurs Magic game that night. But and then eventually the time comes where it was where that was announced months in advance before that race that he was not going to be back at GMS in 2022, and so he almost wins the championship, comes closer in 2021 than he ever did in 2020, and then after the season he's out of a ride, and we don't know where he's going to go, and he gets lucky to get a ride, even luckier that it's still in the Craftsman Truck Series where he'll have time to develop before ever moving up to the Busch Series or Winston Cup Series. But in my opinion, Front Row in general needs a Busch Series team, because every time they have people do people do well in the truck team, or drivers that do well in general, regardless of the team, in the Craftsman Truck Series and the Busch Series, it seems like, they get rushed up to Winston Cup too fast. Whether it's from Craftsman to Winston, Craftsman to Busch to Winston, or from Busch to Winston, considering they don't get enough time in the lower series to develop, and then they ended up sucking ass in the Winston Cup Series and stinking up the joint like Terry Labonte. That's exactly like I said. It happened with us, with John Hunter in 2020, except for the Aaron's 499 at Talladega on Father's Day when he nearly pulled a Ron Boucher to get his first Winston Cup win, which would have been the biggest upset of the 2020 season if Ryan Blaney didn't just, be a dick and run Eric Jones up the track and then into Nemechek, in which they both got into the wall coming to the checkered. And then they did the same shit this year to Alfredo as well. Alfredo was doing pretty well in the Busch Series with RCR, even with that scary-ass Kansas flip. And yet, front row is the key. How we call, Dale Jr. the king of being wise, Dale Sr. the king of intimidating, Terry Labonte the king of stinking it up and tearing it up. I think front row is basically the king of fucking up a driver's career when they're doing well in the Busch and Craftsman Truck Series, but then they want to see, they see potential. And these young guns, they want to make them better and, turn them into future Cup stars. But it's like, slow down. Like, you don't need to do that. Like, after only one good year in the Craftsman Truck Series, one good year in the Busch Series, or one good year in both series apiece. Like, can we just do what Zane and Noah are doing? Like, this is going to be Noah's third year in Busch. This is going to be Zane's second or third, maybe fourth, I don't fucking know, year in Craftsman Truck. They're taking it slowly, one step at a time, which I think is the way it should be, regardless who the young driver is. Even Hailie Deegan's doing the same shit. These are three of my favorites that are playing it smart, not rushing it. Noah's not rushing it, Zane's not rushing it, and Hailie's not rushing it. She's staying another year in Craftsman Truck, and there's why she's my favorite, one of my favorites, not because she's hot or anything, no, not even close. It's because I feel like she can be a better driver than Danica if she gets the Winston Cup without being rushed. You know what I'm saying? See, Danica was rushed because of the GoDaddy money. That's the thing. And that's why she stunk it up like Terry Labonte, except for the 2014 EA Sports 500 at Talladega. Remember when I still lived in Brook Park in the Sandhurst house right before I moved into this house? She was leading at the end, towards the end of the race during the final cycle of green flag pit stops, and she would have cycled back around to the lead and won the race with ease. They probably would have been afraid to not pass her, not prevent the biggest upset in Winston Cup history at the time, until yours truly, who I despised at the time, Kyle Larson, brought out the caution exiting the pits, and that's what lost Danica the race, because, 2 or 3 green-white checkers came along. Brad Keselowski took the win, and Junior was eliminated from the chase, and Danica's best shot at winning a Winston Cup race went down the toilet altogether. So that's the thing I do not want happening to Hailie, even though the video is mainly not about her or Noah, or, it's about Zane. So, therefore, with Front Row Motorsports and the Craftsman Truck Series, I feel like, hopefully Zane does equally as good as he did at GMS, maybe even better than he did at GMS, and maybe actually win and then in the Craftsman Truck Series championship this time. And, how, speaking of GMS, we all know that, Ty Dillon is making his Winston Cup return with GMS in the number 94 car. So, now I'm hoping, this probably may have to take some pure luck at a non-plate track, or, so just basically, if not, maybe it'll most likely have to be Daytona or Talladega if it's not a plate track. If like all the good cars get into a giant wreck, and it gives like the smaller teams that don't run up front every week or all the time a chance to win. That's probably going to be Ty's only shot at winning his first Cup race in 2022, or a non-plate track where some crazy fuel mileage has to happen, or a rain shortened race would have to happen, a weather shortened race in general, rain, fog, whatever, mist, whatever, would have to end it. Chris Buescher at Pocono in 2016 in the Pennsylvania 500, and of course you had David Grudeman in the 2009 Coke 600, and of course this past year's EA Sports 500 with Bubba Wallace. I mean, that race stunk up the joint like Terry Labonte, not because Bubba won. I loved that he won and pissed off all the racist redneck boomers on Facebook and, of course, Twitter. But the fact that, that race was actually getting good when he took the stage 2 win and it started pouring. And I was waiting for a big one to happen while I was watching that shit at work, considering I couldn't stay home to watch it that day because my mom wanted me to conserve my days off when I really should need them. And, that was a day, I took so many days off that I didn't need beforehand that I could have used for that day that I had to go to work. So, but luckily for me, we have direct TV at the workshop, like cable, satellite TV. And so I was able to watch, part of the race there. And while I was watching the portion at work, I was waiting for the big one or a flip to happen, only because out of spite, out of good spite, I wanted to see how crazy, I wanted to show my coworkers how crazy I get at doing. I watch a race at Daytona Talladega and they crash and have the big one or a flip. Because that would have been fucking awesome for me to show them. But hey, one of these days we're going to get it when we least expect it. You know what else we're going to get one of these days when we least expect it? Seeing my favorite Winston Cup, any of my favorite Winston Cup drivers, or let alone Busch Series drivers, win in person at MIS. Or any track we go to, my dad and I go to in the future that's not MIS. Or, you know what else? I just had this on my mind. I'm drawing a blank. What was it? Oh, yeah. Like our own 2001 Firecracker 400 or 2004 Napa 500 or Bass Pro MBNA 500, here's the example I'm referring to. You know how, we had the 2001 Firecracker 400 at Daytona, the first race at Daytona since the death of Dale Sr. that Jr. ended up winning with Michael Waltrip coming in second, and even though Mikey didn't win the race, he rightfully celebrated with Jr. in the infield on the front straightaway in front of a bunch of screaming fans because he didn't get to celebrate his first win with DEI in February because of the death of, his boss, Sr., on the last lap when he was trying to push them to victory and protect his team. That's one example. The other example was 2004 Bass Pro MBNA 500, or what was called the Napa 500 before that, which I still use that name now. The first race since, the Hendrick Motorsports plane crash here in Martinsville where Johnson won, there was no victory lane celebration because, of the Hendrick plane crash. And, Johnson won the race the next week at Atlanta. And, it was not only him in victory lane here, even though Gordon was out due to mechanical failure early in the race, and Terry Labonte and Brian Vickers were not even in contention. They still came to victory lane to honor the members of their team that, their whole Hendrick organization that they raced for that were killed in that crash, which included Tony Stewart's helicopter pilot, which was nice enough to help Hendrick with their stuff at the time. And they turned their hat backwards in honor of Rick's son, Ricky Hendrick, the same paint scheme that Larson used to win the championship at the Checker Auto Parts 500 of Phoenix this year. So, yeah, that was a kind gesture. Well, I've not had that happen to me yet where I get to watch my first race since someone in my life, past, present, old, new, passed away. I have a big goose egg in both. Seeing a driver I like win in person, whether you're Winston or Busch, because I don't think I'm going to a Craftsman truck race anytime soon. And, I also have a goose egg, having someone win, a driver I like win, and the first race I watched and someone in my life, family, friend, that's past, present, old, let me try that again. I can't talk today. It was wild with, the Margaret shit and everything. But I have a huge goose egg in 2 categories. Let me try this again. One, being my first race since a family member of mine or an old friend of mine, past, present, old, new, passed away, where a driver I like wins the first race since that kind of tragic event happening. And I have a huge goose egg, seeing a driver I like in Winston and Busch winning a race in person. And I don't say Craftsman because I don't think I'm going to a Craftsman Truck Series race anytime soon. Me and my dad haven't been to one in many, many years. But I'm really excited to see what Zane Smith can do for Front Row Motorsports. And I don't know, I just hope, with Todd Gilliland, considering that this happened to us with John Hunter in 2020, considering he went back down to Craftsman Truck to redeem himself and try to give himself the kick in the ass he needed to turn his career around, even though he came up short of the championship because of hitting the wall and getting damaged one lap into the Chevy Silverado 150 and losing the championship that way. He rejuvenated his career, turned it around, and he's going to be back for more like Mike Skinner in 2022. How far ironic is that it's back for back 4 more. 4 was Mike Skinner, the Kodak Mac Film Chevrolet Monte Carlo for Larry and Morgan McClure Motorsports. Alfredo this year, same thing. Didn't do well in the 38. It's almost like they want the front row wants the 38 team to fail more than succeed. Hopefully I'm wrong where, Todd Gilliland, he has more experience with this team than any of those two drivers combined. Maybe this will, considering he's done well for them in Craftsman Truck, this will give the 38 team the kick in the ass they need to turn this team's luck around. Like this 38 team alone and not front row as a whole. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Zane can do in front row equipment and Craftsman Truck Series competition in 2022. Maybe he can give us a championship, and maybe if I'm able to save enough money and find it, get lucky enough to find his merchandise, whether it be old GMS merchandise or newer front row merchandise, I'll wear his stuff, and then maybe I'm record a video of my reaction to him winning the 2022 Craftsman Truck Series Championship. But first things first, we got to get through the Florida Dodge Dealers 250 at Daytona, then the rest of the regular season, and then going into the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series chase for the Cup, and then get to Phoenix first and score enough wins and points and consistency to get to the championship 4 in Phoenix at the Chevy Sorano 50 at this time of year in 2022, and then we'll go from there. So that's going to be today's video. So tomorrow we begin Mark's 25 Days of Christmas. Now keep in mind, this is a series I tried in 2018 and during the Christmas season at the time, but I only did one video of the series, one episode, and I skipped towards the late portion of the early part of the series because I was consistent with that. I didn't record the first day, second. I have to double check and look at it and see what was the only episode recorded, but either way, I was not consistent with it, and I never completed it, so this time it's going to be different. I'm going to try to be as consistent as possible. I promise to try not to skip an episode, and basically day 25, Saturday, Christmas Day, is basically going to describe what I got for Christmas, so I'm going to open presents with my family off camera. Once everything's open and we're eating, after the annual traditional, early afternoon dinner, then I'll recap what I went for out for Christmas, and then we'll focus on the Graham Shields Spurs Heat live stream on the day after, and then 3 days later the Paris Burrell's Spurs Pistons live stream, or is it the other way around? I don't fucking know, but anyway, I'll check and remind you in the next video. So have a good night tonight and a better day tomorrow. Take care everyone, good night, and most important of all, wish me luck with Margaret.